Evening all, welcome to day 7, almost a week in, well we are a week in now into December, and so we're going to go completely retro right now. Now don't let the graphics scare you, watch the action, this is the important bit. We're playing Quake, we're also playing Quake 2, so this is a twofer. You're going to get Quake and then Quake 2 halfway through. So let's kick off. What we're going to do is talk about Quake 1. Now, don't worry, I am going to play Doom at some other point. At the moment, I was kind of tossed up between should I play the original Quake or should I play the OpenGL version of it, which has obviously come out lately. And I thought, do you know what? I'm going to play the very original one just to kind of comment upon, firstly, the graphics, but secondly, the gameplay. For those of you who played Dust 514, this is where I learned how to game, playing games like this. And you'll notice that the way I play these games is very much how a scout used to work in Dust 514. And notice the troll ready to come. And it's all to do with the fact that it was all incredibly strafey, fast running, gunning, high powered weapons that could do huge amounts of damage. Then you get out and you evade. And this is why I think the scout to me was such an incredibly good suit in Dust 514, because I've pretty much, this to me is gaming. Gaming is this. It's not, looking down the sights of a ridiculously product placed gun, then and then just dying with one shot. It was about the skill of the evasion and the capture, and really just all of this sort of stuff. And I think, to be honest, I miss this kind of gameplay, and this is why I'm kind of I'm really kind of pleased that we can do this advent calendar series, because it is worth looking at some of these older games and realizing, actually, I think we've lost something with regards how these things used to work. Now, Quake was obviously a really interesting game, because the reality was, and I'm only talking Quake 1, Quake 3 and etc. are very different to this conversation, but Quake 1, which you're seeing now, really kick-started again the whole premise of very fast-paced gunning, gory, bloody horror kind of shooty kind of games. Yet, weirdly enough, people, there wasn't much of an outcry when Quake came out. It was, when Doom came out and when Grand Theft Auto came out, massive outcry. But with Quake, I think it was obviously much more sci-fi, and I think, to be honest with you, it was a much kind of more fast-paced game. As you can see, I've not sped this footage up. This is me playing it, and hopefully you see the style of which I play, quickly switching between guns, getting in close, strafing, evasion. I love this kind of gameplay, and to be honest with you, there aren't really many games out there, and there haven't been for quite some time, that have this kind of fast-paced feel to it. I think sometimes the engines that obviously create these games kind of cause the problem with this as well, because if you've got such a powerful engine which requires a huge amount of grunt, you see how smooth this is, because obviously you could probably play this on an iPhone. In fact, I'm sure you can. And you can see it runs really smoothly. It felt so responsive and accurate and light. That you just felt as if you were, and there is this thing in games, and I got this from a few games, Max Payne, certainly Half-Life and others, that you really do feel that you are, in God mode, if you like. You feel as if you are in a film, you're striding through the middle of enemies and you're laying waste to them. And I think that is what most people play games for. It's that feeling of complete detachment that says, I'm a superhuman, look at me go, and look at this. This was so satisfying, clearing rooms of enemies fast. It felt like you had superpowers. And yet games nowadays, they try and make you feel as if you're actually a soldier dying, the horrors of war almost. And if you watched PlanetSide 2 yesterday, hopefully you're getting this, because PlanetSide 2 has got none of the stuff Quake has got. That feeling of being superhuman, that feeling of really being, making a difference, the world's on your shoulders, and that ability to be fast paced and evade and fight and whatever is completely absent from those games. Battlefield 4, they just don't have it. Now, a bit of an advert here, but Dust 514 certainly did, and it still does to a degree, because it rewards skill more than those other games mentioned, because I think it obviously, if you're really good at something, you take pleasure from being good at that. And I think, a good Quake player or a good Doom player in that, even, single player or multi, would still have a massive feeling of sense of achievement, whereas I think, I don't get that from PlanetSide 2 at all. You could be the best player in that game, but the reality is you spawn, die, spawn, die, spawn, die. Battlefield 4, the same. Spawn, die, spawn, die, spawn, die. And you're not really you feel as if you're kind of failing every time you die, and I've never really understood a game that completely shuts you down for feeling, or rather makes you feel you're failing and shuts you down. Even when you play things like Half-Life Deathmatch, you never felt as if you were kind of being, I don't know, as if you were literally dying continually and pointlessly, and it was frustrating. I think you would smile if somebody, picked up a gravity gun toilet and fired it at your face and killed you. That's funny. I think just literally making you wear the toilet hat is the way to kind of, and you didn't mind because it was all kind of a bit of fun. So I think certainly games like this, they are old, they look old. I mean, my God, this thing, I don't even think it's 3D. I think this is literally, I remember running this and it was really difficult to get to run. So that shows you how old I am. But it was, PCs have come a long way. And I think certainly what we see nowadays is that, the graphics and the experience, I think, have completely generated beyond belief, but the gameplay and the feeling of being, making a difference and feeling important and special, which is what we play games for. We don't play games to go and do accounting simulators. We play games because we want to rule the empire, or we want to, invade a planet. We want to be the superhero. And I think gaming companies have forgotten that, because particularly when it comes to multiplayer, yes, you can't have 16 heroes, but you can have one. You can have one player who maybe does make a difference. But I just think too many games companies now are making games that reenact the world of war, certainly, but they miss the point that the experience is actually an individual experience all the time. It doesn't matter if you play as a group of 100 or one, you're still only you, and you only know what you feel. So it does feel a slight shame that a lot of games no longer have this kind of reward of skill and fast-paced eye-hand coordination. It's just not there. And I think this is why I kind of bemusingly kind of reference Dust here, because Dust with the scout suit, with the flaylock, I know I keep going on about it, but it felt like I was playing Quake. Literally, I think I even superimposed that rocket launcher onto a Dust video once, because to me, everything about it was all about skill, and the skill of the evasion, the skill of running past an enemy, turning around, shooting them, fighting them, strafing. Strafing was brilliant in Dust. Now it's terrible. The scout suit is dead, and I hate to say that. I know a lot of people are trying to rekindle it, but no, it's dead. And I think unless we kind of get back to the kind of more mechanics like Quake that give you that sense of really trying and achieving something, it's just not going to work. So let's go to Quake 2. So Quake 2 was then obviously the successor to this. Now, there is a story to Quake 2. Quake 1 didn't have a story at all. It was literally just, stuff happening, react to it. Whereas Quake 2 was obviously, and they did do a remake of Quake 2 in Quake 4. Quake 3 was a multiplayer arena game, and already my brain's hurting. So the whole Quake series is completely messed up. But Quake 2 I quite liked. I always had a bit of an enjoyment of this, because to me this was right what I'm talking about. You are a soldier on your own, you're making a difference, you're put into the battlefield, and lo and behold, you've been disassociated from your team because something went wrong, and you're on your own. And I love that feeling of, right, I've got the whole of this planet to attack me now. Bring them on. And I love that feeling of, right, my skill is what's going to keep me alive here. And again, I just honestly think lately with games, the skill thing is just missing. And I hate it when people kind of pander to the lowest common denominator and say, oh, well, not everybody's as good a shot as you, therefore we're going to nerf you and just make these other people better. It really is kind of like elementary school nonsense, you know what I mean? And it's like, things like aim assist are actually quite bad. I think, in many games nowadays, aim assist is prevalent. Now, I grew up on a diet of games that never even would give you aim assist, let alone even, entertain the thought. So I know it's a console thing mostly, but certainly being a PC, kind of master race gamer, certainly I never have bothered with aim assist ever until recently when I've started playing Dust. Dust 5.4 that is. I've started to play with aim assist on because everybody else does. So what's the point of me being kind of, principled and stuff when I keep dying? Am I going to sit there with my brains in the floor and my balls in my mouth and say, yeah, okay, well, at least I've got my principles? No, it's not about that. And I think at the end of the day, a lot of games nowadays don't reward the skill that you see here. Now, again, this could be a control issue. Too many games nowadays as well, the controls are just bollocks. And, you know, I cite kind of PlanetSide 2 a little bit here. The controls in that game are fine, but, you know, the such high graphical quality of what's going on means that you don't have the fluidness here. So you see here, my mouse cursor is I'm really able to aim well at people. But in PlanetSide 2, I noticed I wasn't really, because you didn't have that same kind of smoothness, because they're probably putting too much strain on the game and trying to make it brilliant. PlanetSide 2 on PS4, I know a lot of people have been saying, oh, it will be brilliant, it will be brilliant. Well, it will. I'm sure it'll be very good. But what will happen is that you'll have an aim assist game there as well. So the reality is, PlanetSide 2 is one of these games that would just be awful with aim assist, because what's going to happen is people are just going to pick you off from a distance, and that's not good. I think the problem I have with generally a lot of games lately is they don't give you this feeling that you're actually like really striving and killing and doing good stuff. And I think the last game that kind of did this for me was I know amazingly, Call of Duty 3. Not the multiplayer one, because obviously that's just literally the less said about that the better. But the single player campaign. It was the same feeling as this, that you felt as if you were really fighting and tussling. The graphics were brilliant, it was smooth, the game was so well produced that you actually felt as if, not superhuman, but you felt as if you are a very highly skilled warrior who was fighting. And I think that's in all its subtext is what I feel is missing from games nowadays. Quake 2 was again a bit of a kind of funny game really, because it was nowhere near as good as Quake 1. It was absolutely shoddy compared to Doom, and that was an issue because people came to this game expecting Doom, which again, it's just a remake of Doom really. You know, let's face it, Doom is all about Mars being invaded by aliens, so you then have to fight blah blah blah. And while I respect the genre, I think, to be honest, Quake 2 was a big decision point for ID. And we haven't said much about ID. I mean, they're a prodigy of gaming developers, really, because they came up with so many good games. Yes, but mostly they were leading the drive in this kind of first-person shooter genre. They created Doom, they created Wolfenstein. I almost killed myself with the scenery. I'm really clever, aren't I? And I think really they created a game series that just was sublime in Doom. And Doom obviously went on to inspire pretty much everything after it. Even stuff today is kind of referencing Doom in certain degrees. And Doom, I would say, is probably we'll look at Doom, don't worry, we are going to do that. I think I wanted to show Quake because this to me was almost like the controls of this were better than Doom. Doom's ability to strafe and that was always a bit gimped because you didn't play it with the mouse and keyboard. And it's amazing to me to think that I played this game first time round with only the keyboard. I didn't even touch the mouse. So it just makes me smile because it's like, how on earth did I manage, Whereas now I'm actually aiming with the mouse and it's just so responsive and lovely. And I think this is what, again, I shouldn't maybe play too many games like this because they do make me pine for the old days. So there was something really cool. Oh my God, it's a Strog dog. I hate those things. These things used to give me nightmares, seriously. I was quite young when I played this, and I must admit these things terrify me. Anyway, I ain't afraid of you now, boy. So I think a lot of the time, sometimes it's good to play games like this because you remember certainly how good they were. I'll share a little joke with you. For those of you who do play Dust, there is a lovely feeling. When I started playing this game, it reminded me of the old Chromosome build of Dust. It even looks a bit like it. It looks a bit old-fashioned, obviously, but it just runs so beautifully. And I think there's definitely something about this kind of game that now run on just a general PC just runs amazingly well. And this is why you should never stop playing older games. I think there is always something to enjoy in the older games, because there are now particularly games that were just like Crisis, a great example here. Crisis was a very demanding game when it first came out. Now you can run it on a pretty standard PC and you can run it at full whack, and you'll probably find that it's actually really cool. So if you didn't do that, give it a go. Other stuff as well that I'd heartily recommend is Serious Sam. I don't know if you've ever played that. It is an absolute tongue-in-cheek kind of take of the entire Doom experience, and I would heartily recommend it. If you miss Doom, if you like Doom games, play Serious Sam and you'll have some fun. I think actually you can buy a lot of these games on Steam for like 20p or something stupid, so it's like really cheap now. So I definitely think about it, because, you know, I think you could just buy Quake 2 and you could have an afternoon of gaming and you'd have some fun, because yes, it's dated and yes, it's old, but you've still got quite a good game and you've got a really good kind of compelling story. Plus, if you are an aficionado of FPSs, or first-person shooters, then you should try and play as many as you can, because you'll find that your skill goes up. Certainly playing this, it reminded me how, you know, I'm going to polish my own trumpet a little bit here, but I'm quite good at FPSs when I get in the right frame of mind. And I think you give me the right game with the right kind of stuff, I'll be pretty good at it. And I think this is where Dust was, and Dust has now moved more towards Battlefield 4. So, you know, unfortunately, that kind of gaming is dead. So there we go. Did you enjoy that? If you did, go and check out squadb.com. We have plenty of wonderful things going on over there. And we're going to do an article on this, just about kind of the way that, quote, Twitch gaming has maybe developed. And maybe now how it's basically being killed off. But we shall talk about that. A discussion to be had. Hope you enjoyed that. See you next time.